we're very excited as part of the L&D Grow webinar series, and the last one for 2021. We have a topic that couldn't get better, very hands-on, and probably we have one of the best speakers that we could get, an expert on this topic. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rei Perovic, all the way, she was joining us from the United States. Rei Perovic, PCC, CPC, is a brand coach and creative director and the founder of Gem7 Studio. Do check out her website, gem7.com. Rei partners with women coaches, consultants, and purpose-driven professionals to transform from feeling overwhelmed and muddy to confidently growing their authentic brands to create an impact and make a difference. Wow, I can just visualize it in my head, and that feels so good. Her clients consider Rei their thought and creative partner to develop their business and personal brands from foundation to execution. And before founding Gem7 Studio, Rei has worked at the forefront of the ad industry for over 17 years as an associate creative director and art director at major global advertising agencies in NYC, creating advertising and digital marketing campaigns for a wide variety of brands. Rei lives in New York, NYC with her husband and Prince, the pit bull, and Zoe, the tuxedo cat. We'd love to know more about that from Rei. I need to add on one more dimension, which is not part of her very impressive bio, which is I met Rei, I think almost 1.5 years back at a chapter leaders meet, and we just happened to be in one of those breakout rooms, and something about maybe the way Rei's whole presence was or whatever. I had made a note of with and then we stayed in touch. And then when this topic came, we said, okay, we've got to start this with Rei. So when we wrote to her and she so generously accepted to run this webinar for us, we were super excited. With that background context and a lot of excitement, I hand over the mic to Rei. But before I do that, just one last housekeeping. This webinar has CCEUs, and Natarajan would be putting in the opening password and the closing password in the chat box. Closing password would be given to you right at the end of the webinar, and the opening password will go out now. Please do make a note of it. Thank you.
Hi, wow, can you all hear me? Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. And I wish I were there in person to see your beautiful city, but oh well. So I'm glad to be seeing you from wherever you are in this virtual world. As Vijay graciously introduced me, my name is Rei Perovic, and I am a brand coach and creative director and the founder of Gem7 Studio. I partner with women coaches and consultants to grow their brands with intention by getting clear about who they are as a brand to create an impact. And before founding Gem7 Studio, as I was introduced, I worked at major global advertising agencies in New York City for over 17 years as an associate creative director and art director. In my career, I created advertising digital campaigns for a wide variety of brands for consumer packaged goods, home appliances, skincare, department store, liquors, pet food, financial services, pharmaceuticals, glasses, non-for-profit organizations, and the fabulous US Open tennis. But the brands that I truly enjoy helping the most are coaches and consultants, because of the impact coaching can have in the world. So I like to take a moment to thank the leadership team at the ICF Chennai chapter for inviting me to share my expertise in branding. And I celebrate all of you for being here. It shows your commitment for growing your coaching business. So let's get started. So this is a workshop about creating your online brand, focusing on creating your authentic coaching website. And I know the process of website development can feel quite overwhelming, and it takes a lot of work, energy, and mental space, whether you build it yourself or to work with professionals. And I created this workshop for you to receive support and guidance and to walk away with good understanding of what's involved in the process and also your clear next steps and the action items moving forward. So this workshop is meant for you to initiate or reconnect with your website development process. So this is just a start. And I have a lot to share, and I will make sure to pause for questions. And I'm also mindful of not overloading you with too much information. So feel free to use the chat function to ask questions and share insights that come up for you throughout this workshop. And this workshop is for 90 minutes, and you can get the best out of it by being fully present and actively participating. So please make sure to turn off notifications and silence your phones. I always feel like a flight attendant here. And if you notice any intense sensations of stress and overwhelm during this workshop, make sure to take a deep breath and give yourself permission to be kind and gentle with yourself and only take away what you're meant to take away. So let's dive right in. So if you could pull up a poll for the group, we would like to run a poll. Are you ready? Okay, perfect. So tell me where you are in your website building journey. So the options are, I don't have a website yet. I'm in the process of building my website, or I have a website I don't feel great about, or I love my website. So we'll give it a minute. Okay, so about half of you don't have a website and quarter of you are building your website. And another quarter of you have a website that you don't feel great about. And 10% of you, 3 people, love the website you have. So good for you. Awesome. So also, somebody's asking for the link. I don't know what link he's asking for. Also, please type in the chat. What is the biggest challenge are you having with your website building journey? So please type in the chat. Oh, you can end the poll. Sorry. Technology, copy. Taking the first big step, yes. So much to say, yes. I don't know what C is. How to get more visitors to the site, yes. Yes, thank you for sharing. What's to put in it? That's right. Yeah, to create a content. How much information is enough? Should I have a separate site for coaching practice alone? Can I be part of? Yep. Content. Yep. Thank you so much for sharing the answers. This is awesome. Keeping it dynamic. Yes. So you don't need a website to develop your coaching business. And this is definitely not the first thing you need to focus on if you're just starting out. But what I find a bit ironic is that even coaches who preach that you don't need a website have a website. Chances are your potential clients check your online presence as a validation tool, and you want to make sure that it's a good representation of you and the quality of your coaching. So if you think of your website as a brick and mortar store, what do you want it to look like? Do you want it to feel like a beautiful high-end space where everything feels so curated? Or do you want it to feel like an intimate, charming neighborhood boutique? Or do you want it to feel like a professional space where everything is functional, clean, and organized? What do you want your visitors to experience? So there is no right or wrong answers here. It's all about your brand, which I'll get into in a little bit. And in my humble opinion, having a busted, unprofessional looking website is more harmful than not having a website at all. In that case, I think you're better off having a very tight LinkedIn profile. And some people may think the main challenge of building a website are the tech stuff. While that may be true to some, the tech part can be researched or outsourced rather easily. Excuse me. You can look up tutorials on places like Google, YouTube, Skillshare, Udemy, or outsource to folks on sites like Upwork, Fiverr, or someone in your network. What I find from working with clients who are women coaches and consultants, and then also hanging out in the coaching community a lot, is that real challenge is really not the technical stuff. What's proven to be challenging instead, as many of you shared in the chat, is getting clear about how to present yourself and talk about yourself professionally as a coach in a business. Again, it's about branding. To create an effective and authentic website that represents you well, you need to be crystal clear about your brand. And this part needs to come from you, and it can't really be outsourced if alignment and authenticity matter to you. Also, you may have experienced this before, or it may come to you as a surprise, but there is a lot of emotional stuff that come up in the website building process. Sometimes launching your website can feel like a public declaration of your commitment as a coach, like, here I am as an official coach, ready to serve the people I commit to. And with that, I've seen a fear of commitment, imposter syndrome, and lots of different parts that come up. Also, some of us may have unrealistic expectations that once we launch our website, there will be a flock of people rushing to check it out and signing up for a service left and right. And I hate to break it to you, but that doesn't usually happen either. Even after you launch your website, which I know feels like a lot of work already, you still need to continue working on it to attract traffic. I know that there are a ton of folks who sell hacks and formulas to make 7 figures and all of that stuff, but there is no magic pill or one quick golden method. This is all honest and hard work. So the website development process really illuminates where you're clear and where you're not clear. And it will show you where you feel empowered and where you need to work on internally as a coach. So my hope is that you bring mindfulness and a coaching presence into this process and not treat your website as yet another thing to check off. As dramatic as it may sound, I believe that the website building process can be a journey of transformation, empowerment, and realignment for you. So I mentioned the importance of getting clear about your brand. So we'll start from there before we dive right into talking about website development. So I'm going to share the slides now. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the slides? Yep, thank you. Awesome. So what is a brand anyway? Do you even need it? And that's a valid question. Building a brand is not just for big companies like Coca-Cola, Apple, Nike, or famous people like Oprah, Tony Robbins, or Kim Kardashian. And there are definitely some influencers out there with their personal brands that makes us cringe. But building a brand isn't about being internet famous or shameless self-promotion. Do you ever feel like everyone is a coach nowadays, whether they're certified or not? Why would anyone choose to hire you over so many other coaches? Building a brand is a way to differentiate yourself from other coaches and connect to your ideal client. It's an essential part of growing your coaching business. So here's a quote. Your brand is what other people say about your business when you're not in the room, by Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon. So whether you realize it or not, oh, hold on, it froze. Sorry about that. So whether you realize or not, you already have a brand. Brand is basically a fancy word for how others know you to be, your reputation and your impression. So while it's impossible to control what other people think of you, you can be mindful about nurturing your brand with intention through your actions, interactions, expressions, and messages. And your website can be a great representation and expression of your brand. So why is it important for you to build your brand as a coach? So building your brand with intention will help you to bring clarity and focus, establish credibility by sharing your expertise, become memorable, recognizable, and create a lasting impression. Distinguish yourself from thousands of other professionals, especially those who offer similar services. Identify your tribe and connect with them by expressing your personality and what you stand for. And increase your influence by being visible. It will also help you to expand your network by creating meaningful connections and attract more opportunities. Inspire trust by being consistent in your communications and actions rooted in your core values. It will help you understand yourself better, including your gifts and uniqueness. And empower yourself and be confident. So let me take you through briefly 3 key elements of your brand foundation. And it makes a colossal difference whether you're clear on this part or not in your website development process moving forward. So the first key element, of course, is you, your essence, what you're about, what makes you unique, and what you stand for. As coaches, people choose to work with you because of you. And the truth of the matter is there are many other coaches who do what you do. And I say good because we need more coaching in the world. But this is more of a reason to differentiate yourself so your ideal clients can identify and connect with you as their hope for their challenges. So here are some questions to get started. Why do you do what you do? What makes you unique? What makes you credible to offer what you do? And the second key element is your tribe, who you serve, who you work with, your support network of people you share similar values and visions with. You may have heard of the word niche. And although niche is not just about your target market, it has a lot to do with it. And this is a big topic to the point that I've given a workshop just about that. And I hate to keep it short today, but feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or need help with that. But niche seems to be a common area of conflict for coaches, meaning that you may have heard that it's a good idea to define your niche to grow your coaching business. But you may be thinking, I can coach anyone, or I don't want to miss out on the opportunity, or I don't want to narrow down, or having a resistance to committing to one group of folks, especially when it comes to marketing materials like your website. If you're not clear about who you're talking to, then it's kind of like talking to yourself out loud in the middle of Times Square. And it's hard for anyone to either resonate with you or even to know to pay attention to what you're sharing. So here's a quote I really love. When you try to be everything to everyone, you accomplish being nothing to anyone, by Bonnie Gillespie. So here are some questions to get started on getting clear about your tribe. Who do you serve and why? What is their challenge that you can help with? Where do they hang out? Where can they be found online and offline? Okay, the third key element is your service, how you serve your clients with your gift, your skills, experience, natural talent, and strength. What you offer, what do you do to help your client transform from point A to point B? Again, if you're not clear on what you do or what you offer, how would anyone else understand what you do or what to do with you? And you can always choose the degree of how much you want to share or how specific you want to be on your website, but you still need to have that internal clarity. So here are some questions to get you started on getting clear about your service. What do you do to help your clients transform from point A to point B? What is the meaningful outcome you help produce for your clients? What unique value do you provide for your clients? So there's you, your tribe, and your service. And where there overlap over here, where you see that golden part in the middle, I consider this the DNA of your brand. And this is what makes you extra unique, aside from your own uniqueness you already have. And there's a lot more to brand development, but these three key elements are absolutely crucial. And otherwise, your website will be generic, muddy, and hard to remember. So I'm going to stop the share. So I will stop here for a minute. Does anyone have any questions so far? Are you all following me? Feel free to type it in the chat if you have any questions.
It's all good, Rei.
Okay, awesome.
Good till now. Yeah.
Great. So I will share again.
There are a few comments coming in, and let me just read them out. Lots to think about, lots of things to think about. Seems a lot of responsibility for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good.
Beautiful. Okay, can you see my slides again? Great. So after clarifying your brand foundation, it's time to connect the dots to the visual presentation of your brand. So in this step, I recommend you to define things like your color palette, font combination, logo, photography style, and illustration style, if any. And they're typically called brand identity. You can do that yourself, or you can work with the designer. And with my clients who are women coaches and consultants, after we come to brand foundational clarity, including the three key elements that I just shared earlier, we explore and define their brand identity in alignment with that clarity. Then I create what's called a brand style guide containing all of the elements. The brand style guide or the brand guidelines can be from one pager to multiple pages, depending on the company. And they are useful to keep consistency when you're developing your branded materials, whether you're outsourcing or DIYing. I used to create brand guidelines for big corporate brands that are like 100 pages, but it's really not necessary for most coaching businesses. And I would imagine somewhere between 1 to 15 pages would be sufficient. So let me show you mine to give you a good sense of what I'm talking about. And then you'll see this develops into a website later. So let's see, let me stop the share of this. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the PDF. Thank you. So this is my brand guideline, and I know it's a bit small, so I will get closer, but you can see this is all on one page, one long page. So you see my color palette here, and then you see a variation of my logo, the typefaces I use, some of the graphic elements, so you get the sense of the playfulness, and then some of the patterns that you're already seeing in my slides. And then I like to play with collages for Gen 7 brand. So some of the examples of that. And these are the inspirational images that I use. And then it also shows my brand archetypes, brand voice, brand personality, and what I'm not. So you can kind of see it all on one page, and you see how that might be useful, especially when you're outsourcing, or check against yourself to say, am I on brand? So that is what the brand guideline can look like. So I will stop the share. So I'll stop here for another minute. Does anybody have a question?
It's one question that's come up from Madhu.
Sure.
Can you share sample answers to the questions? I'm assuming the questions that you asked just a little while ago on the slides, especially for the service part.
Sure, let me see. The service part. Oh, what do you do to help your clients transform from point A to point B sort of questions?
Thank you. Yes, I would want to just I mean, this is the first time. Yes, I do some amount of coaching within the organization. But however, if I have to start building the brand, I have a lot of these questions, right? How do I promote? How do I position myself? Any sample question answers, I mean, so that we can look at whether we are in the right direction, putting these answers to these key questions for us to position ourselves.
So I had a little bit of a hard time hearing your audio. So what I would like to share is sometimes what us coaches know as what the clients need is not necessarily what they might sign up to our services for. So for instance, we might think that they need, let's say, I don't know, like self-love or something like that, right? That's the core of what they need. But let's say what they really want or they might pay for is a weight loss. And if you say, you know, even though we can't really guarantee results, if you say align with what your body feels like eating instead of mindlessly eating. So that is sort of what makes you unique and what is the meaningful outcome. So it could be a weight loss, whereas maybe self-love is what they need. So you may touch on it, but not as like a headline, if that makes sense. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Any other question?
Yeah, I asked a question. Sorry, I'm not on the camera, but I was wondering, I saw at the bottom of the page, it was defining your archetypes and your voice. Could you elaborate on that? That sounds quite curious. I mean, I know what the archetypes are, but I wasn't sure, you know, why it's part of the of that, like, guidelines. If you could elaborate on it a little bit.
Yeah, so those are not necessarily the most typical element of the branding, but there are branding archetypes based on a book that I can't remember of the heroes and the outlaw. I'm just looking at my bookshelf by, yikes, I can't see the author's name. So she talks about the archetypes, much like how the coaches work with the archetypes, but specifically for brands. So that's one of the methodology that I implement in my branding, brand coaching, to define what your brand archetypes are. And I like to work with 3 so that it's not, you're just not going with one. That's why I include that on my brand guidelines as well as my clients. And then the brand voice is really helpful to define. So you could sound like really informal. So my brand voices are empowered, curious, and insightful. And the personality is courageous, creative, and playful. So you will never see me really formal and really serious, because that's not my brand. I like to be really curious and playful. So it might be helpful for you to define that, because sometimes you may be a really, really, really like out there, bold person, which is awesome. But it may not fly if you're like a leadership coach working mainly with, let's say, financial services that appreciate really like not that much out there sort of personality, if that makes sense. So it's really good to define what you're going for so that, again, you can check to see if you're on brand or not, because consistency is very important.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you so much. And would you be able to put in the chat the name of that book? It's rather curious. I think it's really profound to know
Yeah,
first for
absolutely.
yourself before you project out there to make sure it's aligned. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
There's one more, Ray, but I am wondering whether you want to take it later. How to evaluate which website developer or branding agency is good? Any criteria to evaluate them? Many are approaching. How do I know whether they're good?
I would ask them to show you their work, their portfolio, and then also ask them for their process. And it's kind of like picking a coach, right? It's also personal to pick a creative person. And then also word of mouth is a really good way to go. Because sometimes they can be really good, but they might not be professional in their approach. So there's so many different elements to picking developers and designers. So I will make sure to not just go with the first person you find, do a little bit of looking around and then also connecting to see who you jive with, because this is going to be your partner, if you will, the collaborator. So you want to make sure that the chemistry is there and you feel good and the person is professional. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you have time for one more?
A little bit tight, but sure.
Okay, but I think this one goes with what you shared earlier. How to choose the color palette? Any preferred combinations that are harmonious and not so harmonious? Resources for these?
Yes. Well, if I could answer that in a minute, I'll be a billionaire. So I would recommend you to look at different brands and then the impressions those color combination gives out. So let's say if you pick red, that's really hot, right? This is why a lot of signage have red for warning or danger. Whereas if you pick like cool colors like blue or green, that gives a calming, soothing sort of feel, or a lot of corporations use those colors. So I recommend looking into color psychology. Yes, the ICF blues. And then also, yes, there are color combinations that feels harmonious and then also contrasting from each other. And that also gives a certain impression. So yeah, you can look into color psychology to learn, excuse me. Yeah, and think about the impression that your color palette's giving out. Is that helpful? Okay, good, awesome. So let me share the slides again. Can you all see my slides again? Can you give me a, yep, awesome. So now we're ready to talk about your website development. And before you do anything, I invite you to ask yourself 2 questions. Question number 1, your website objective. What is the purpose of your website? What do you want your website to do? So here are some examples of objectives. To serve as a validation tool for your potential clients, to automate and streamline your process, to establish yourself as an expert, to rise brand awareness, to increase sales and conversion rate, to attract your ideal clients and filter out others. So depending on your goals and objectives, the simplicity or complexity of your website will change. And with that, the amount of work and budget will change as well. Question number 2, call to action, CTA. So the second question to ask is, what is your CTA, call to action? What do you want your visitors to do next after they visit your website? So the most common CTA is to contact you for a free chemistry call or something like that. And other examples include to register for your event, program, course, to request more info, estimate, proposal, to book a meeting with you directly, or to purchase online products like tools and resources. So now we're going to touch on a coaching website structure. And here are the basic essential sections of a coaching website. First, home, the main and the most visited page of the website. And this is the first page your visitors are likely to see when they visit your website. About, it's the second most visited page on your website. It's about you and your company, but you want to make sure that it's actually about your audience and showing them that you get their challenge and you can help them. About page is also a great place to share your story. Services, the services you provide. One of the key branding elements that we touched on earlier. And then contact, to provide a way for visitors to contact you. It's usually a form. And the point is to make it easy for your potential clients to contact you. And another thing that's worth mentioning is legal pages. They're typically pages like privacy policy, terms of service, cookie policies, etc., at least in the US. And it's best to consult a lawyer on this. And so that was the basic essentials. Now I'm going to share some additional elements to consider to make your website more effective. And some of it is to help with your SEO. And for those of you who don't know what it is, SEO stands for search engine optimization. And it's basically about discoverability, meaning that when people use Google or any other search engine, SEO strategies and tactics help you rank your site higher, meaning that your site is more discoverable, that it pops up on page 2 on Google instead of page 72, where no one has the patience to look that far. And it has a lot to do with keywords you use and so many other things. And SEO is also a workshop and expertise on its own. So with what I'll share now, you don't need to incorporate all of them, just the ones that are appropriate for your coaching business. So the first one is testimonials. It's good for your potential clients to read about your other clients' successes. And it's your clients' words, not yours, which make it even more powerful. And if you haven't, I recommend you create a habit of asking and collecting testimonials during or after working with your clients to keep them in one place, like Google Doc or Evernote or whatever else you prefer. Case studies. Case studies also make it easier for your potential clients to visualize overcoming their challenges and see what's possible for them after working with you. Videos. In the past few years, video content has proven to be incredibly effective. People retain memory better from watching a video than reading an article. Videos can immediately give your audience a sense of your personality and your connection. And as you know, that's incredibly important in building coaching businesses. And your videos can be a quick intro, client testimonials, you sharing your expertise, or video podcast. Blog. With video content becoming so popular, I know blogging feels pretty outdated, but blog posts are still a great way to leverage SEO. And I've discovered so many new businesses from Googling questions and reading their blog posts. But posting blogs takes commitment. And if you're too busy to maintain it, and if your last blog is from 2017, then it'll give off the impression that you're no longer in business. So make sure that you're up to date. FAQ stands for frequently asked questions. So having a FAQ section can be helpful in addressing questions that your audience may have. You can also direct your audience to this section as a part of automation process. So you can use your time on meaningful tasks instead of answering the same questions over and over. Resources. The resources section creates value for your audience by offering a great user experience and also being helpful. It can also contribute to setting yourself up as the subject matter expert, and having external links help with SEO. It also creates reasons for visitors to come back to your website. Social media integrations. So it's a good idea to connect your referred social media accounts to your website. Not referred, preferred, sorry. And then last but not least, lead magnet. So you may have seen it everywhere at this point, but it's basically a freebie on the site to get visitors' email addresses. And at this point, we're all oversubscribed, and and people don't necessarily want to sign up for your mailing list just to receive newsletters and updates. So the lead magnet can be a free PDF, guide, quiz, template, short video series, and you can get creative with your idea and decide what creates value for your audience that's in your niche. And it's a great way to contribute nurturing your website visitors if they chose not to contact you right away. So I'm going to stop the share. So now you know about the important sections to make your website more effective. And the next step is to think about the website structure. And when working with my web design clients, I always start with what's called the wireframes. And coming from a big ad agency background, there are many processes that are simply unnecessary in the entrepreneurial space. But wireframing, in my opinion, is an essential step. And it makes a huge difference if you take the time to do it or not. And just like you don't start building a house by buying a couch or wallpapers immediately, you start with the blueprint of what makes sense structure-wise. In the case of website development, the blueprint is called wireframes. And this process allows us to focus on the content rather than getting distracted by the visual elements, which are easy to get caught up in. We're not ready to design just yet at this point. And the process allows us to evaluate if your message and information are conveyed in the most effective way. And if not, it's easy to make changes since we're not yet dealing with font sizes and image changes and all of that stuff. And if you're going to be using template later in the process in platforms like WordPress or Squarespace, it'll be easier to make a decision without the overwhelm because you already know the structure you want to implement for your website. So earlier, I shared the key section of a coaching website. So you can decide to dedicate one section like about or services on a whole page, or you can have multiple key sections on one page. So the good place to start to ask yourself is my website going to have multiple pages, or is it going to be a one-page website? So I'm now going to show you examples of wireframes. And since I do this for a living, I use software, but you can literally do this with pen and paper, like doodling sticks figures. So I'm going to share the slides again. Can you see my slides? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. So these are some of the wireframe examples from my company website, Gem7 Studio. And it's rather an elaborate website with multi-pages. So I envision this website as my online playground for creative expression and to help women coaches and consultants. So I just have fun with it and I'll continue to add content. I'll show you how all of this transformed into a live site in a minute. So you can see multiple pages with different sections, and you see it's really minimum like stick figures, as I said. So you can literally do this with pen and paper. And I don't even put like image. So wherever you see this X, that means the image placement. So you get an idea. and there is no copy. This is all Greek copy. And then you see the content. Why work with Rei, lead magnet, email sign up. So this is really to place the structure and see how the website works in terms of conveying information. So this is an example of multiple site. And this is an example of a one-pager website. So I have a transformational coaching practice called Realign Project, working with purpose-driven, overachieving, and perfectionistic professionals, especially people of color. So I'm hitting the same key sections as I said before, like about services and all of that stuff, but they're all on one page. And one-page websites are a good way to go, especially if you're just starting out or if you want to just have a simple online presence. So I'm going to stop the share again. So now I'll show you both sites in real life. All right, so let's see. I'll share screen again. All right. Can you all see the website? Okay, thank you. So now this is a Gem 7 Studio website, which is my company website. And you can see how that aligns with the wireframes that I just shared with you. So first there's that headline and what it's about, and then lead magnet sign up. This is about me in the short sentence. I feature a client testimonial video, testimonials. This is the services, another testimonials. And then I'm really big on community. So this is all the community stuff that I offer. And then if you look at the menu section, you see different places, why. So I'm also really big on why. So why branding, and then why me. And then this is the service section. So work with Rei. So it talks about brand coaching, creative direction. And then I showed you the case studies. So this is how the case studies page looks like. So I featured 3 clients, coaching clients that I worked with. And then you can learn more. So that I feature her video, testimonial video, the process, the results, the background. So you get the idea. And then the about section has my story. So it talks about my journey that relates to coach's journey. And then also the professional bio. And then I also have a resources pages here. So I have different tools that I recommend, and then the contact page right here. So you get the idea that all the elements that I shared earlier, I sprinkle them into different pages of this multi-page website. Now, this is a one-pager website for Realign Project, which is my transformational coaching practice. So all you see is, even though there are menu options, this is all on one page. So what I did is talk about what Realign Project is, and then I just put, we might be a good fit if you are. So I really wrote out who my clients are, and then about me, and then how it works, because with Gem 7 Studio, I work with coaches, so they already know what coaching is. But with this one, typical clients may not know what coaching is. This might be their first time. So I might also list out the topics that we might work on. And because it's more personal, that I don't like to reveal the identities of my clients. So I may just make it sort of anonymous with the initial for this one. Whereas with Gem 7 Studio, it's all spelled out who they are and what they do. And then I featured my contact section on the website here. So it's all one page. I might develop this into multi-pages later, but this is a really good start for someone who doesn't want to put a lot of time into it and just have an online presence, as you can see. So I will stop the share. So I'll stop here for another minute. Does anybody have questions?
Just a quick follow-up. You said some of the testimonials are anonymous and some of them with the names. What is the reason for that?
So for Gem 7 Studio, which is my company for women coaches and consultants, it's not as personal that they worked on their brand for their business. So I get their permission to list their names and titles. Whereas with Realign Project, they may be speaking about something that's deeply personal. So it's my choice to not disclose their name, client's name, but it's nice to share some of the love that I receive from my clients. So that's why I feature what they say, but not necessarily reveal their identity. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. It just looks more credible when you have the name, but I do understand that, certain things that they say in a testimonial could be, too personal. So thank you.
Yeah, and I also don't want the potential clients to look up my site and say, well, will I be revealed? Will my identity be revealed if I sign up with this coach? So that is also a personal decision that you make for your business.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ray, there's another question from Shelley.
Yeah.
Wants to know, would you mind sharing who designed your site? And the second question is, what is an interesting way to communicate our model of philosophy?
So the first question is easy. I design my sites, both of my sites. So yours truly. And what is an interesting way to communicate our model or philosophy? That takes work. And that's why my clients pay me for their coaching work. So one thing to take away is it just takes a lot of digging, maybe processing, getting a coach, and maybe look at inspirations and references, that what model or philosophy you're inspired by and how they share their story. But I'm happy to speak with you. It's not a easy answer. Any other questions?
There's one more.
Sure.
So this is quite direct. This is from Johnny. If I have some clients writing me a reco on LinkedIn, can I share that on my website?
I think the best way is to ask them directly and say, hey, thank you for the recommendation. Can I share that on my website? Is probably the best way to go.
I think we lost you, Ray. I'm not sure whether it's just me or...
Can you all hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we can.
Natarajan, could you get the last bit? Okay, sorry. Maybe that was me. Sorry, apologies.
Ray, I have a question. My name is Gerard. How do you ensure that the information that you post on each of them, the about, everything that you've told in those 12 different pointers are just about right so that people read them through, see, I'm talking about a situation where you decide which is the most succinct information that you can provide. What's your benchmark there? Because in an attention deficit world, you're not sure that people can actually read through all the information that you provide. So what's that threshold value that makes you decide this is the amount of information that I need to put?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And thank you for asking. So it's also about knowing your audience, right? So some audience feel like if the copy is too short, then it's like, well, what does she know? Or, well, it's so short that I don't know, I don't have enough detail. But if you know that your audience tend not to read long sentences, then be mindful of that. So I don't think there is one universal answer. The answer is know your audience and know how they react. But normally keep it, I'm sorry, I don't have like a specific, like how many words. but keep it long enough, but not
That's-
so long like a novel that nobody clearly reads. Also, one of the things that you might want to be mindful about is keep your sentences shorter than what you might normally write. So put a period and then start another sentence. And then also be mindful about having breaks. So don't do like a long paragraph. So you have shorter sentences and shorter paragraphs so that you can kind of, you know, the impression like when you look at like a huge block of text and it's like, oh gosh, I'm not going to read that. So to just break that barrier, make sure that you have many breaks.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question in terms of the social media. So we all have social media like Instagram, Facebook page, where we do share content. Some of it is personal, some of it is, business related. So by integrating this professional website with the social media, do we still need to copy the content, like a professional content, for instance, we have on Instagram, on Facebook, to the website, or by integrating that, we kind of avoid that step, and like you also mentioned that we can have a blog. So if I kind of convey my message through social media, then do I just copy and paste it into my blog? And like, how does that work? Like in, from operation standpoint?
Yeah, I would imagine if you could repurpose it, then that might be really efficient and really a nice way to go. But for instance, if that's your branded social media accounts, but if you have a Facebook page for your family and friends where, you might post like really deeply personal stuff, then you may not want to connect it to your website. So the one, yes, repurpose your content wherever it's appropriate. And then two, make sure that you're connecting your business social media accounts.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. So let me just get back to the content so I can get through all of it. So I'm going to share the slides again. Can you all see my slides? Can you give me a nod? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, thank you. All right, awesome. So now I'm going to take you through a very brief steps for building a website. So first, step one, do research and collect inspiration. So look online and take notes of which website you resonate with and which websites you don't really like and why. Step number two, know your budget. What is your website development budget? If you want to go ahead and download the branding checklist I have on my website, there is a flow chart to guide you through to see your next step in your website building journey. And knowing your budget can determine the level of help you can hire. So here are some required costs, which is your domain fee and hosting company or website builder fee. So the pricing will vary depending on the service you use, but this should come under a couple of $100 per year. But I don't know how that is in wherever you are, whether it's India or I think somebody was, I think people are calling in from all over the places. So check with the company. And then the additional costs can be web designer and developer, copywriter and proofreader, photographer, and illustrator. So pricing for creative services is much like coaching. So it varies a lot from $20 to $10,000 and up. And some people use their friends and family, and some people barter. So choose your collaborators carefully with intention as you would for any partnership. So one thing I like to note is that photography plays an incredibly important part in your branded communication, especially as a coach. So sometimes your picture can say a whole lot more than what's being written in your messaging. So if you're someone who often coaches about confidence, and if your picture is not reflecting that, that's a problem. So if you have a limited budget, I recommend that you spend your money on your portrait rather than something like logo design. Also, if you don't work with a copywriter, make sure you work with a copy editor or proofreader to quality control your site. Step number 3, decide and purchase a domain. So domain is the website address like yada.com. So you could purchase them from companies like Namecheap, domain.com, or GoDaddy. So they're called domain registrars. And your domain can be your name, like reiperovic.com, or your company name, like gem7.com, or concepts, like realignprojects.com. So I recommend purchasing iterations as well. So in my case, it could be gem7.com, gem7studio.com, things like that. And sometimes people also purchase like typical typo domain names as well. Step number 4, define your website structure. So I talked about this earlier, and this is where you create your wireframes. Step number 5, copywriting. So follow the structure you set in step 4, and you can write your own copy or work with the copywriter. So follow the structure and write your words to it. Step 6, decide your website platform. So website builder are like Squarespace, Wix, things like that, or CMS or content management system is WordPress. So if it's a WordPress site, choose a hosting company like SiteGround, Bluehost, Flywheel, and purchase a plan. And if you work with a web designer, then they should guide you through this process. So this is where it gets a bit technical. And in my opinion, tech stuff is kind of like a topic of money, meaning that some people just can't seem to face it without emotional charge, that it's easy to get triggered or be impatient. And all sorts of self-critical parts seem to come up. But as a business owner, you're going to have to befriend the tech or the inner critic that come up. Or just like you need to know your numbers. And as a coach, it's about shifting your mindset. Tech can be a powerful tool to grow your coaching business. So the difference between WordPress and website builders like Wix or Squarespace is that WordPress has so many more customizable options, including access to the backend. So you have way more control over your website. But options can be overwhelming, and some people find WordPress way too complicated to deal with on their own. This is why many coaches, especially when they're building their own website, choose to use Squarespace or Wix. One thing you want to know that with website builders, you can't transfer your content. So whatever you build in Squarespace stays in Squarespace. This means you have a series of blog posts, and if you ever wanted to upgrade your website to WordPress, you would have to start all over. Also with website builders, you're basically working with their templates, with their built-in code structure, so the ability to customize is limited. And I found it extremely frustrating when I had my previous site on Squarespace, but this may be okay for many folks. So at the end of the day, what's important is that you pick a platform that you feel comfortable with so that your website can feel like your own, not something that you're afraid to touch. Step 7, set up a website and start designing. So the process of setting up a website depends on the platform you choose. So it could involve picking a template. Step 8, things to keep in mind after you finish designing your website. So proofread. Have a proofreader check your website to see if there is no typo. Make sure your site is mobile responsive, meaning that it looks good on smartphones and tablets, and keeping the integrity of the original design on desktop. configure SSL. So SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer, where you see the padlock icon to the left of the domain. And what you need to know now is SSL is to do with prioritizing user privacy and security. And it's important that your website is secure. If it's not, all you need to do is contact your hosting company. And install Google Analytics. So Google Analytics help you understand your audience's behavior based on tracking data so that you can come up with strategies to improve your site's performance and traffic. And step 9, launch. So I will stop the share. Does anybody have any questions?
There is a
One question. Okay,
Yeah.
go on, Natarajan.
There's a question from Gerard. Will the web designer ensure copyright protection?
Copyright protection of what?
So what I meant here was, let's say he introduces a photograph from someone, and that may be copyrighted by someone, and that's a risk that I may get into, that if I'm not aware that this has been taken care of. So I know you need to have a professional web designer to do all this, but who takes the accountability?
I would say that's your responsibility to make sure all the copyright are protected.
Sure.
And I think every web designer works differently, but photography, if you're talking about photography, that's a photographer's domain, or if you are to source stock photography, then you definitely want to make sure that you're not infringing any copyright. And if, let's say, if it's your copyright, then you want to make sure to submit it for the copyright yourself. So I would imagine that it's really not the web designer's responsibility, but it depends on who you work with.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
No other questions in the chat. If anyone has a question, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Any other questions? No? So this is where we can go into the breakout room. Is that something that you would like?
Ray, I have just one question. Is it okay if you can ask? Sorry, I missed that one.
Sure.
So Google Analytics, I'm sure probably I can research it and find this out elsewhere too. Does it help in actually telling you how many have gone through your testimonials and how many have gone through your other different parts of your website? Does that analysis come through in Google Analytics? Maybe I can also find it out elsewhere.
Yeah, so Google Analytics can tell you how many people visited certain pages, but it may not tell you which part. No, but I'm sure there are other analytical tools that maybe you can pay for that will tell you that, but I'm pretty sure Google Analytics doesn't really tell you which part of the site that people visited.
Thanks.
So let's go into the breakout room, and I will share the screen. So I wrote 12 minutes, but since we don't have 12 minutes, let's make it, what do you think? 10 minutes? You know what, let's make it 10 minutes?
Yeah.
So each person receives 3 minutes to share your website takeaway from this workshop and at least one action you commit to taking by when, as a coach and accountability, and how you want to be held accountable by the rest of the small group. So let's go in there for 10 minutes. Okay. Awesome. So let me just share my contact. So here's my contact. And I know this was a lot of information. So if you have any questions or if you want to have a chat, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'll be happy to hear from you, and feel free to send me a connection request on LinkedIn and let me know what you thought of the workshop. So let's come back to the room, and I will open the room for questions or insights, what you're committing to do. Let's spend the next few minutes chatting. Does anybody have questions or anything that you want to share?
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. My name is Janja, and I come from Slovenia. I'm interested in how long, let's say, you developed for how long time you developed your career before you built your first website.
You mean like how long I've been coaching before?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So this is a iterative, I can't say the word, process. So I had another website before this one. So I did create my website right after I launched my coaching business, which is not what I have now. So I'm just going to be really transparent. I'm probably not the best example. So I built my website and that was no longer in alignment with what I was offering. So I built this one, which took forever. I'm not going to lie. The Gem 7 Studio site took forever because it's really extensive and I put a lot of love into it. The other one, the Realign project, I decided to launch this project and then I finished the website in about 2 weeks. So it's really, for myself, the length of time that it took really reflected the clarity I had about my brand, basically. So I am a walking example, and yes. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Ray. It's
Hi.
Nirmal.
Hi.
Hey, what's the typical duration that possibly, a website development would take? The entire journey, per se, not just development, I would say the entire journey. What would be the typical duration
of the website development?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm having a hard time identifying where you are in the screen. So it really depends, like I said. So if you're super clear about what you want to say, how you want to structure, then you can get it done within 2 weeks. But you also want to make sure that you have all the assets like your logo, color palette, or your photography, things like that. So if you have all of that stuff, the development itself can only take a couple of days, but that's not what takes time. As I said, getting clear about how you want to, repeat yourself takes whatever it takes. So
got it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone else?
There's one question, Ray.
Sure.
I struggle with the ADLIB. Any guidelines that will help me, please?
What is that?
Shaili, would you like to talk about it?
Adlib?
Yeah, Adlib.
What is that exactly? I know what Adlib is, but the telling what you do in one line. Okay. So yes, so you could say it's an elevator pitch. You could say it's a brand positioning statement. Yeah, it also takes work to get there. So again, get clear about what you want to communicate, write it out in different versions. Ask, your ask your friends and colleagues who know what they're doing and see what they think, if they have suggestions, how that reflects your business and if it feels true to you. But yes, even though it's like a short line, it's not as simple as you think. It takes work to get there. And you're welcome to reach out to me. Anyone else? Yes, being succinct. That's hard.
I think we're coming to the close. Any final question?
Some amazing feedback coming in. Just loving all the energy, and I'm sure the breakouts have been amazing. That's the sense.
Yeah, how was your breakout session? Did you take away with the accountability piece? Yes, I'm seeing thumbs up icons. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of you for having me. And I hope to see you around.